Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 16th regular meeting of the Board of Directors of School Administrative District number 52. We're going to start the meeting tonight with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Chris.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up is an action on our minutes from the 15th regular meeting. Does anyone have any comments, thoughts, feedback on the 15th meeting minutes? Seeing none, so those are approved by unanimous consent. For my report tonight, just a couple of points. One, very sorry to say, but I'm going to have an extended medical leave here, so I will be not at the next couple of meetings. They will be led by our Vice Chair, Mr. Peter Ricker. And per policy, the Vice Chair moves up from the Chair of the Finance Committee, so that will be Ashley Mishu, will be the Vice Chair in my absence for the next couple of meetings. Also want to welcome Jenny Mayhew, our newly elected member from Turner. Not only is she going to be our new member from Turner, but she's also going to serve on the Policy Committee. Even though I'm not so sure there are many more Policy Committee meetings left this year. So if we do end up having a Policy Committee meeting, you will be able to jump right in. But that will be your subcommittee role for now. As you know, we have our organizational meetings every summer, and we'll look at that again here in a little bit. But moving on from that, we can move into public comment. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to speak? Yes. Okay, so just before we do that, I just want to remind everyone that our board meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying out the official business of our schools. It's important to note that meetings of the board are open to the public, however, they are not public forums. At each full meeting of the board, time is allocated to provide opportunities for citizens and employees to express opinions and concerns related to the matters under consideration by the board. These comments shall be within the guidelines set forth under policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings. Copies of the policy are available on the district's website. I just want to highlight the following. The chair is responsible for recognizing all speakers. We ask that speakers identify themselves by sharing their name and town of residence. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to express their views. Speakers should direct all comments to the board, specifically the board chair. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters. It is not intended to be a conversation or a debate of issues. We know that school-related issues can be emotional, but we ask that civility is maintained. We will not permit profanity, gossip, defamatory comments, shouting at one another, or comments that disparage or attack individuals or groups. The board is faced with many important issues, so for the sake of efficiency, the board discourages duplication or repetition of comments. The board will also not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. We certainly care about these concerns, but they are personnel matters which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint policy, KE. To reiterate, this is just a highlight of key points. Please refer to policy BEDH for a complete description of our public participation policy. So with that. Yeah?
Crystal Nicholas from Green. I have two concerns tonight. I have reservations about our new cell phone policy and its strict prohibition against using cameras and or the camera video function on any device. While no one wants kids on phones, the number one reason parents purchase them is safety. Did you get it on video? Maybe one of the first questions parents may ask after a concerning incident. Video is evidence, and without evidence, children are not believed. Children in this school have also photographed displays that violated policy and brought these issues to the attention of directors. What I dislike about this policy is the expectation that activity in this school is private and off-limit to parents. Generally, the idea that photos are private is legally dubious, as Maine is a one-party state. Sharing images can only be challenged when one can argue of a reasonable expectation of privacy, such as an intimate act. Instead of fostering permission, all transparency is banned. Parents collectively pay millions for these schools, and we deserve to know what goes on in them. Those who prohibit scrutiny arouse suspicion. I'd also like to ask, in seeing that this policy bans obscene content, does that mean that kids can no longer share the kink.com website available for LEVA students and genderqueer? This is a no-holds-barred pornography site advertised to minors. Is that okay to share because it's in a book? I'm also curious if the reference to consuming excrement or the idea that, quote, peeing on people in a way is considered sexy. Can students share that? As far as graduation requirements, it is discriminatory to treat homeschool students of the same grade differently than their public school peers. According to most data, homeschooled students tend to score in the 80th to 90th percentile for standardized tests, while their public school counterparts average scores in the 50th. 66% of homeschoolers get into the college of their choice, and most higher educational providers actively recruit them. In 2015, Business Insider noted that home education is the new path to Harvard. The only benefit of 2 years of high school is for a homeschooler is for the school in funding and a boost in scores. One-size-fits-all mandates never benefit the individual. Please honor and respect homeschoolers' significant educational achievements, rather than treating them differently based on prejudice. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
I do. Giles, please. Welcome, Jenny. You know, I've asked this board, I've asked about the opt-out situations, whether it's in books or surveys, where the line is drawn in that to where, you know, if a kid is opt out of a survey and he gets the survey, like if he reads onto it from somebody else, if it's discussed after, like where's the line drawn? If they're opted out of the books and somebody gets the books and shows the kid the book, or the book is left on the bus and the opted out kid gets the book, is there any way that I can get information back on that to tell me where there's some type of line drawn where if the kid is opted out, gets a hold of what he's opted out in a way, like who's in trouble or where, you know, where's the line drawn to where you could do something when that line gets crossed. You know, I asked about it in the meeting, I followed up with an email, I have nothing, so like, am I gonna get anything? Or is it, you know, I'm a parent like the rest of you, the taxpayer, my tax bill's due tomorrow, a bunch of that money goes to the school. Am I obligated for any information? You know, I realize because I was against the masking, I've been labeled in some way, but you know, all the masking evidence has come out in favor of the people like me. You know, shutting down schools, all this stuff never works. And I just don't like the fact that people like me would have to run for school board so that nobody will ever get treated the way I got treated, you know, because that's how I would do things. I wouldn't treat people the way I've been treated. I would give information when it's asked for. I urge the board to take up agenda items from Mr. Shostak because me and the whole community want to know about this gender expansive guidelines that I personally asked and forward request for that nobody knew about, and I know another parent asked and sent a snapshot of the exact stuff, and they said, we don't know anything about that, but this has been going on since before Ms. Med got here. So there was this information out there that people asked about that we haven't received. This is a very, very important thing in this world. I would love it if the schools just focused on the school things, but you guys are in a situation that's unprecedented. There's a lot of different stuff that's come to, that needs to be put to rest so we can get back to the basic stuff. You know, so, I mean, there's just, I urge you to look at it because people should be able to get things on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I just want to provide some positive information. The Levitt Reading Challenge that I'm always promoting, this is our 10th year doing it, and we had the most successful year ever. We have had students read over 1,000 books, and we've never ever had that happen. It's been around 500, so we've had over 135 or 136 students read over 1,000 books at this point this year, and it's pretty exciting, and we've been celebrating it a lot, and I just wanted to share that with the board. Oh, and I also wanted to thank the trustees for their help with all the prizes.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none. Move on. off with communications here. I do not have any. Ms. Med?
So, you might not have gotten this, there's a donation
Yes.
from Camden National Bank. Yeah, it's a long letter, but the donation is, is down there. Took me a minute to find it, though.
Sure. So we will announce a big thank you here to Camden National Bank. The donation in the amount of $225 made on behalf of Nathaniel Allen. Yes, I'm just trying to see if it's right. For Tripp Middle School.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Camden National Bank. Do you have anything?
I do.
Okay.
I'd like to report resignation, Carla Lobley, teacher here at Green Central School, effective at the end of the year. A transfer, Darlene Rollins, who's currently a special ed teacher at Leeds Central School, is going to be transferring to the special ed building coordinator position for Turner Elementary to Turner Primary at the beginning of next year. And 2 new hires, Amy Jasmine, special ed Tech 3 at Turner Primary for the beginning of next year. Zoe Covert, special ed Tech 3 at the beginning of next year for Leeds Central School, and actually one more. And then Jordan Flynn, she's backdated effective March 27th, who she was waiting for her credentials to come in. Library Ed Tech 3 at Turner Elementary School.
Thank you very much. There are a couple of adjustments to the agenda this evening. The first is the addition of item 10.8. which will be review and approval of a letter for staff. We are going to move that up ahead of item 10.6 so we can take care of that before executive session. There's also another item, which is item 8.4. My understanding from finance is that they're not prepared to make that recommendation tonight, so we're going to strike that from the agenda. 8.4 is we're going to strike. Otherwise, we'll move on to committee reports.
I have a request.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that, to further adjust the agenda for an item to direct the superintendent to make all staff, faculty, administration guidelines, handbooks, etc., publicly available through the website.
So there was some requests to do that. I responded to you on this already when we were considering the preparation of this agenda. I think there's some more thought to be put into that by staff and administration. I think very well could come up at a future meeting, but I don't think we're prepared to talk
I've made a
about that
motion.
tonight.
You need to call for a second.
So is there a second?
I'm just a second.
Okay. We will put that on the agenda as item 10.9, which will come in just after item 10.8, which will be before item 10.6. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but we'll address these before we go to executive session is the point. Could you repeat the motion, Anthony? Or the motion that you're
A motion
putting on the
to
agenda?
direct the superintendent to make all staff, faculty, and administration guidance, handbooks, etc., publicly available through the district website.
Joe, can I just ask a point of order? So we don't need to vote on this, it just will just go on the agenda. Motion second is not something we vote on to go on? Or?
No, that's a really good point.
I don't know.
No, that's a
I'm
really good
lost.
point. So let me just take a step
It's never
back for a
happened
second.
before.
Yeah, this is because it's not supposed to happen.
Just
Um,
want to make sure we're doing it.
It's a very good point. You're right. I think we should vote on whether, because it's a motion to adjust the agenda, I'd assume.
I think that it does. The motion requires a second from another member and is subject to debate and a vote.
Yeah. Because the motion itself is not on the floor right now. It's just a motion, I'd assume, to add it to the agenda for this evening.
Correct.
Yes, okay. So let's take a vote on that, whether or not it should be added tonight, to tonight's agenda, or, as I said, we're already considering it for the future. So discussion around this right now? Anyone want to say anything about adding this to the agenda tonight? Go ahead, Anthony.
So this is directly related to that guidance that I requested some time ago and was provided. I think you all have a copy of it. That is worded nearly identically to policy that that is available through the Maine School Board Association as recommended policy. I believe that would be ACAAA. This district does not have that policy, but it has this guidance which functions almost like policy, and yet is, because it is not policy, it is something that none of the people on this board, to my knowledge, even knew existed until we were provided with this document. Since it is policy, or rather, I'm sorry, since it is guidance that touches upon issues like parental rights over their children, it seems to me that the very least we could do is make sure that that material is publicly available, that parents can get access to it without burdening the superintendent through FOAs, which are time-consuming and inefficient. And we don't know what other guidance might be lurking there that also functions like policy, that we have not had the opportunity to look at and decide whether or not this is something that we really think is appropriate for our district. So I urge you all to vote for the motion.
I'll call on you in a second, Bree. I just want to say that I have already responded to this request. I think I forwarded that to everybody here. You should all see it in your email. Anthony had a long list of items he wanted added. We have added several of Anthony's requests. There are a variety of them, though, that are going to take a little more time. And we've got quite an agenda tonight. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about this at all. I'm just saying we shouldn't talk about it tonight. And I think we've got a rather full agenda, and I think we should give administration a chance to think about that more. There's all kinds of things to think about here regarding a handbook project that's in the works that I think will help this a lot, but it's just simply not ready for discussion tonight. Go ahead, Bruce.
I would like to draw everyone's attention as a reminder to the bottom of the agenda where our board norms sit every single week. I personally feel not prepared, and I feel like this is somewhat of a surprise to add to the agenda, and those are two of our norms, no surprises, and also be prepared. I would not even know where to begin in the conversation, because again, I agree there's other things that need to be prepared and given to us to make me a little bit more, and I think many of us, a little more knowledgeable about the issue at hand, and I don't feel like we would be using our time wisely, which is also another norm, when we would, if we added this to the agenda tonight, what would the discussion look like, and how would we just be wasting time when we aren't prepared? It's a surprise. So I'd like to just make sure everyone remembers the norms. No surprises, be prepared and use time efficiently.
Thank you, Bree. Anyone else have anything they want to add to this discussion before we vote? Anthony?
I absolutely respect Bree's comment. However, I would say that we have all had a long time to look over this particular document that precipitated this request. It is an issue that I think parents in the district are very interested in, and if one of my colleagues wanted to make a motion to amend, to restrict it to just this policy, or rather this set of guidelines, they would be more than welcome to. But I think that we have all of the information that we need to be able to discuss this tonight.
So we're going to put this to a vote, whether we should add this to tonight's agenda. Like I said, as potentially item 10.9. All those in favor of adding it to the agenda? 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? The motion will carry. It will be added to the agenda.
Right, names.
Could the, do you have names? Kyle, Anthony, yeah. Anthony here, Ashley, Kyle, Alex.
We're not prepared. They didn't give it to us.
And, no.
All right. Finance Committee, Ashley.
We did meet tonight. Gabby presented some electricity rates, which she's not ready to lock in, and then we kind of agreed that we'll just wait and see how rates are changing. They're a little high right now, and she's gonna monitor it for the next few weeks. It's something that if we do lock in for a year, we'd wanna do before we break in June, since we won't be meeting until August. So she'll be monitoring that. She did present to us some insurance information. Cross Insurance reached out to Gabby as just like as a cold call to introduce themselves and discuss insurance bidding. So I learned quite a bit about what we as a district do. I didn't know before, but currently the district uses MSMA, and they're not going out to bid through different insurances. MSMA does that for the district competitively. We haven't made any decisions, and nothing was really recommended other than for Gabby to just reach out to some other school districts and ask what they're doing for insurance and why they're doing it, and then we'll go from there. But as of now, the district is still with MSMA insurance. And Gabby can jump in on this if she wants more on the paid family leave conversation. So there is an option to go private with it. Rather than going through the state-funded program with the 1%. So it's a slightly less percentage, it's 0.94 with MetLife. The biggest advantage for doing this is it defers that payment that the district would have to pay on behalf of the employees by a little over a year. So $65,000 the first year, we wouldn't have to pay in.
Roughly.
Yeah, so that's funding that would be in the next year's budget, that would no longer be there if we went private. And you'll see that later on the consent agenda, which is what we unanimously consented to, and Gabby can explain more when we get to that. She also touched briefly on switching short-term disability insurance and dental. I believe those are the only two.
No, dental, vision, short-term, long-term vision. I think I said vision already, sorry. I don't know, I'm sorry.
So
Accident, hospital, critical.
those are all voluntary, correct? So the
Yes.
district does not pay for those on behalf of the employees. Employees can sign up for those. Those are switching to MetLife, which Gabby thinks employees will enjoy working with them. And then the audited financial statements are done. We have a copy. The board will get copies either at the next meeting or at a future meeting when the auditor comes to do a Zoom presentation with the management letter, which there weren't any significant findings. Some were carryover from prior years or small items, but nothing significant.
So everybody else did get theirs, it was
Oh, they
just
did,
here on the
okay.
table, yeah.
You all have yours. So that'll be coming up at a future meeting with the same or a different individual than last year.
Different individual than last year.
You did tell them there are questions that are going to be answered on that by the board, right? There's a quiz coming.
Oh,
So you have to read it.
You have to read all of it.
Yes.
And that was our meeting. Next time we meet is May 29th, Turner.
Very good. Plant Transportation and Building Committee, Kyle.
We did meet, we were discussing the TPS water shortages with the issues over there that we've been discussing for a while now. Dave has met with a bunch of different vendors trying to come up with a game plan on how to fix the problem, either temporary fix or come up with a solution. So part of that, if you remember from the past, we ended up approving or they've installed a water flow meter on the system over there so that it can monitor seeing how much water we actually see, because we didn't really know what they was using, and seeing what the wells are doing and all that stuff. So that based off of that, we went and found that Goodwin probably had the best solution. They're looking at actually installing a temporary 1,000-gallon tank over there to be able to help store water, so that if they're, with fire suppression or in water usage, that the system can have enough reserves there to be able to keep up with the schools, so we don't have to potentially have to cancel school like we had in the past with water. So part of your consent agenda we're looking at is using reserve funds so that, for $8,500 to do that work, to install the tank. And that will meet our deadlines that's coming up in
June 30.
June 30 that we have to do, but this would just be a temporary install potentially to get us at least to be, to meet, so we don't get, have any violations in that. So we're looking at, the $8,500 so that they can actually keep moving forward with that project and then revisit it after that to come up with a permanent solution. I don't know if there's anything else.
I think this just gives us time to get a real engineering study so that we can then go out. And then it's our study, we know what we need, and we can have people bid on it.
Do we have to have something done before next school year, or will this 1,000-gallon tank take us through next school year?
This meets the requirements the state is putting on us, so however long it takes, this takes care of it temporarily.
Okay, so it's not something just for a few months?
No,
No.
This could
as
be,
long as we need it.
okay. And does this, if I'm not mistaken, that was, part of the issue there was the combination of the fire suppression and the water, so basically this is just water, drinking water storage, so we can isolate the two?
Yes, this would be domestic
Correct.
water, not fire suppression, right?
Yeah, it keeps up with the, all the kids' usage and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it would be cutting off the fire suppression system from the domestic usage? Because that's where,
Yeah, if the
Problems
water
are
goes
coming
too
from.
low in the tank, it will stop letting us access the water because it has to keep enough for the fire suppression. So this will allow there to be enough water so that we don't end up with that problem,
okay.
where the
part of-
water shuts off because there's not enough for the fire suppression.
And part of it too is that well, it sucks it so fast and it's not getting replenished fast enough in that well. So as it sucks, it's doing the, and then it chokes out and then the well, the pump stops working and then. And if anybody else doesn't have any more questions, we'll be meeting next meeting is May 15th, 5:30 in Leeds Central School.
The policy committee did meet tonight.
I can.
I don't know if you want to give a brief.
So the committee held its last meeting for the year this evening and discussed policies related to employee cell phone use and graduation requirements.
Thank you. The curriculum committee, Bree?
We did not meet tonight, we'll meet again on May 15th at Leeds Central at 5:30.
All right. Student representative report, Coral.
So, as I've said before, our show is May 9th and 10th at 6:30. We're performing a somewhat true tale of Robin Hood. I found the website. It can be found on the Levitt Area High School Theater Instagram page or on Facebook. In our English classes right now for seniors, we're doing a senior symposium project, which is basically showcasing our learning throughout high school with our research, writing, and presentations. We're spending 15 hours outside of school applying research, doing hands-on experience, and presenting it to other classes during our half-day, May 14th. And yeah, that's all I have,
Thank you, Coral.
of course.
Very good. We'll move on to administrator reports. We'll start with the principal of Green Central School, Mr. Parker.
Good evening. Just curious if anybody had any particular questions about the content of my submitted board report. Pretty self-explanatory. You'll notice toward the end of the year, the goings-on tend to get rather robust. The list at the bottom is pretty substantial. One highlight that I would love to take a moment to share with you that's not on the report happened last night. I know that Mrs. Allard was present as we did our pre-K through grade 2 music concert. The room was packed, lots of energy. It was the very first time all of our pre-K students had been together. The Monday, Wednesday, and the Tuesday, Thursday kids got to get together, and it pretty much ran like a Swiss watch. It was great. The pre-K teachers were very The crowd was very receptive, and it was so exciting. There was a lot of great energy. Once the pre-K was done, we switched out pre-K, got off the stage first, kinder came on, same process, and then off first and then second. Jordan Caverly is our music teacher. This is actually her classroom, of course. And she had this just down. The kids knew the songs, great energy, great talent, and it was really an incredible experience. Parents were just beaming, and it was wonderful. So wanted to share that with you.
I was there too, but
Oh,
just watching.
sorry, I didn't see you.
But there was the amount of crowd that was going in and out was actually pretty impressive, that it was able to move out pretty quick. I'm like, oh no.
It was, I know, and, you know, I think they found like what works, what might not work quite so well, and, you know, we focus on what's working well, but you have to admit that the crowd was so receptive. My favorite was one of the pre-K songs, and the crowd went like really crazy, and then it quieted down, and this one voice, you could hear it go, "Are you proud of me?" And it just, the whole place just busted up. It was just priceless. So I'm glad and appreciate that feedback as well. So,
Any more questions for Mr. Parker?
thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. We'll move on to our Turner Elementary School principal, Ms. Conway.
Does anyone have any questions about my report? So one thing that I want to highlight, and I think I talk about it every once in a while, but I'm just really proud of some of the clubs that we have going on right now. So we have a couple of different leadership groups. We have a grades 3 and 4 leadership group who's done a lot of stuff with our kitchen this year. I think it's because the kitchen staff is awesome, so they'll come up with the theme of something that they want for lunch, and then it's usually that they get to decorate the cupcakes, and then they get to have like, I don't know, sprinkles or something afterwards, and I think it's awesome. So that's been a huge hit this year. The kids will do it, and it's like a little celebration in lunch for all school. Our grade 5 and 6 leadership group just completed a fundraiser, and they had a bake sale right during our parent-teacher conferences this past spring, and all the money went to the KITA Center, which is a center for youth to go to if they've had a family member or loved one that's passed away from suicide. We have a student book club, and this shocks me because I was trying to compete against them and I can't. So back in January, we made a challenge for all kids to pick or make a goal for how many books they could read between January and mid-May, because that's when we'll finish up. And I was thinking like 30 would be awesome if anyone could do that. And that was my challenge. We have a 4th grader who has read, and we made it so they had to read age-appropriate books, chapter books, reading level appropriate books, so they couldn't just pick like simple books or anything like that. We have a 4th grader who has read 188 books, and a 3rd grader who has read 211 books. So they put me to shame. That's pretty exciting. And then we also have our running club. It's actually through Adult Ed, but it's led by one of our teachers, and with it being through Adult Ed, and we've worked with transportation, we're able to get 2nd graders from TPS to also come. And it's every Monday, and it's hugely popular, and really all the kids are doing are running. Like, they are running around the campus. And then there's like a star runner at the end of everything. But that's just, it's awesome to see all the kids running and just getting all the kids out there. There is a cost because it's through Adult Ed, but there's always fee waivers. That happens if we know of a kid who wants to do it, so that's been neat. And they are going to have a fun run in mid-May. And then just a couple of things coming up. We have a drama production of Inside Out that's going to be put on pretty soon. And then we have our art and music night also coming up later this month.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Move on to our Leavitt Area High School principal, Mr. Shaw.
There's a couple of items that I wanted to highlight tonight. First one's not on the report that I provided you. We recently had our second visit with our bar coach. Through the bar program, we have 2 visits. She came in December, and she came again just prior to vacation. And the bar coach sits in on some classes, checks out what's going on in the building, and then provides us with a report. And I always am kind of interested in what they have to say, because they are, our particular coaches all over the place. Like, she was in North Dakota just prior to coming to see us, and then she was, I can't remember where she went afterwards, but it's good to get a perspective from somebody who's not there every day. And she had some pretty high praise for us at Liberty High School. And I was pretty proud of that, and I shared some of that with the staff just prior to vacation. And I think it's important to look at that because she does have a different perspective than we do when we're home every day. The other thing I wanted to share, I did mention it in my upcoming events, but I didn't really elaborate on it. We have a guest speaker coming tomorrow, and it's kind of a big deal. The Levitt trustees and I have been working together to bring in a guest speaker, and I don't know if you're familiar or not with it or not, but the gentleman's name is Ken Carter. He was a basketball coach at a high school in California, and in 1999 he became inadvertently famous because he had set up some pretty high standards, behavioral and academic, for his students, and his students were not meeting the academic standards, so he literally put a chain on the gym to keep them out of the gym until they got their grades up. That didn't go so well for him in the immediate term, but in the long term it turned out really well. He's going to come in. There was a movie, I think it came out in 2010 or 2011, Coach Carter. And he's going to come in tomorrow. He's going to talk. We're going to split the school up into 2 because we can't everybody fit in the auditorium at the same time. And he's going to talk to kids about goal setting, resiliency, and working hard at what you like to do. So, just want to share that with you.
Any questions for the principal? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the assistant superintendent's report. Ms. Gillis.
Sure, so I'm just going to report out on a few things that I've been doing since my last report. For professional development, we had a coaching day hosted here at Green by the instructional coach, Amy Musso. This is something we do monthly, mostly monthly. And it was a chance to participate in a protocol for working together that really helped deepen our skills as coaches and leaders. Amy did an amazing job planning that. On April 17th, I was on site at Leeds Central School with Kara Vandas, the co-author of Clarity for Learning. In the morning, she was working with Leeds Central School teachers. And in the afternoon, there was a session for K-8 special educators, and Lucy and Rebecca attended as well. And that was what I hope will be the first of many sessions with her and our special ed teachers. Just this week, Gabby and Cassandra, my administrative assistant, and I went to the ESEA regional training in Biddeford. It included information on the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, fiscal oversight, as well as some program updates. This evening, the curriculum committee recommended visual and performing arts curriculum will be presented as an agenda item by me. And something I've really been enjoying, there was the second session of the Leeds Central School Cooking Club. And I don't want to steal Shannon's thunder, but I'm going to because she's not here. This time, the group made beef chili, but the students had an option not to have beef, as well as some apple pie. So it was a great deal of fun, and I have been really inspired by the teachers that are participating and really want to do this for the kids. And one of the 6th graders said, "I don't ever want to leave this school." So it was pretty neat to hear that. But he is going to be leaving the school and going to trip, so that's all I have.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Gillis? Thank you. We'll move on to the superintendent's report. Ms. Med.
Yeah, I got a bunch of stuff. So I emailed you all an update on the search for a principal for Turner Primary School. Our first search, we had a candidate that turned us down, so we reopened. We are going to be interviewing again on Monday, so we're still moving forward, and I'm feeling confident about that. Just some regular activities. We did have vacation week, but still had my regular meetings with Teresa, Rebecca, and Gabby, monthly meetings this week with Evan, Jana, and Doug. And Teresa and I, before vacation, met with Jason Breton, who's our database manager, to begin planning for updates to report cards now that we have the math standards have been approved, and by the end of the year, hopefully VPA and Health and Phys Ed. So the report cards have to follow that, and if you don't update them in the summer, then it throws everything into disarray once school starts. So we're already starting that process. In the consent agenda, you have a bunch of stuff for personnel matters. So we're recommending nominating 2 teachers. The first, at Tripp Middle School math teacher, Reese Thibodeau. She's pending certification. This is the time of year when fresh graduates are submitting their transcripts and waiting for the DOE to do their work. So Reese is completing her bachelor's degree at UMaine Augusta, has been at Ed Tech since December, did her student teaching as she was working in 6th grade there. Is very, very well respected by the staff that she's been working with, is loved by the kids, so she's going to be moving to the high school, to the middle school to teach math. The other candidate that is before you is Cassidy Camp. She also has been working at Turner Elementary as an ed tech since 2022. She's completing her bachelor's degree at Farmington and is ready to make that move. Oh, sorry. Ready to make that move from ed tech to teacher. So again, met with her. She's a great candidate. Again, very well respected by the teachers at Turner Elementary. You have a whole range of teachers who are moving, recommended to move from probationary year 1 to 2. So by law, public school teachers have a 2-year probationary period. So you nominate them, they get hired in year 1, and then principals do their evaluations and then determine them to be meeting our standards to move into their 2nd year probationary. So you have a long list of them. I can't remember if I read them. So Green Central School has Isabel Bassett. The art teacher shared between Green and Leeds, Rebecca Trujillo. At the high school, we have Colleen Beam, a special ed teacher, Danielle Cloutier is a science teacher, Katie Corser, an art teacher, and Kelly Stratton, a Spanish teacher. At Leeds Central School, Christine Brown, special ed, Lindsay Gilbert, nurse, Carolyn Panato, instructional coach, Joan Tortolot, guidance, and then 3 teachers, Kayla Hutchinson, Delaney Houston, Jody Phillips. There's a shared technology teacher, Stacy LeClaire, between Leeds and Turner Elementary. Shared music teacher between Leeds and Turner Primary, Jack Dodd. At the middle school, we have Wendy Anderson, special ed teacher, and Kimberly Klaus, special ed teacher. A shared social worker, Wendy Dobbin, between TES and TPS. And at Turner Primary School, Maureen McDonald, guidance counselor, Allie Snyder, special ed, and Deanna Wilkinson, the teacher. So they are all moving to 2nd probationary contract. The next group of teachers are completing their probationary period and have been evaluated and have been recommended to move to a continuing contract. So at Green, that's the nurse, Melissa Delahanty, and teacher Karen Netto. At the high school, it's social studies teacher Nicole Fletcher, social worker Megan Goddard, special ed teacher Chip Groover, special ed teacher Sarah Thistle. At Leeds, it's teacher Danielle Allen. At the middle school, science teacher Deb Charest, special ed teacher Melissa Rogers, Michelle Seeley, English teacher. And at Turner Primary, Hillary Rodrigue, nurse, and then 2 teachers, Erin Burnham and Heidi Plant. We've also brought back 2 job descriptions. There were some errors that we needed to do some editing on. In addition, I did consult to see what we could do about language around the 10 pounds. So that has been replaced with up to 20 pounds. So that that will, on all job descriptions going forward, that's what we'll do. So those are back on there. And then Joe did ask me to provide reports on 3 of the agenda items that Anthony requested. So the first had to do with how librarians have addressed the balance issue with regard to politically hot topics, such as gender-affirming surgeries, as well as resources portraying conservatism in a positive light. So what I have to report is the new policy, IJJL, is being implemented. It requires me to provide you with biannual reports on all new books that are purchased. I did that in December and will provide the final report in June so that you can see all books that were purchased and shelved, donated books that were shelved, as well as any books that were purchased but not put into the collection. Principals and I have talked regularly about the process they're doing by reviewing all those books that have been purchased. So they're following that process and reviewing it in light of the selection criteria. So that is what I have to report. There's been a lot of emphasis on that policy and a lot of time and energy spent by principals supervising librarians in that selection process. The next thing was the policy prescribing political activity and how that's being enforced. This is policy GBIA. This policy was approved by the board last May 14th. Spent a decent amount of time talking with principals about this policy to make sure they felt they were able to enforce it. We have an annual sign-off on policies every spring. This policy was too late to add that to the required list. It will go on the required list this year for all employees to review on an annual basis and sign off. Like all policies, employees are aware they have to follow it. We draw their attention to them, and then we deal with issues if we know that they are happening. As far as I am aware, I'm unaware of any issues with that. But I'm pretty comfortable saying that teachers in particular, who would be the ones that might be connected with this policy, are very aware of sort of the desire of the board and have no interest in sort of not following this policy. And then policy IMB, Anthony wanted to know how it's being enforced in classrooms and teaching spaces. This is the policy about teaching controversial topics, and in particular around a library display from the fall. And so this policy outlines student rights to study controversial issue and provides guidance to teachers for handling such topics. Both the high school principal and I reviewed the library display in September. If you recall, 2 falls ago, there was some controversy about the banned book week's display. This display this year was substantially different and really focused on challenged books. And there were also there was at least one additional book purchased to provide more balanced critique of the idea of challenging books or banning books. Teachers, everybody's very aware of this policy and their obligation to follow it. And we enforce it like all policies. And I, again, feel very comfortable that teachers are very aware of the board's desire to have issues like this treated in a fair manner, and I believe they don't want to violate it. So as far as I am aware, I have not dealt with any complaints around that. And that is what I've got.
Okay. Questions for the superintendent? Yes, Anthony.
So excuse me, I have a few questions. With regard to the balance in the collections, has any, there were some topics that were brought to the board's attention by community members who spoke before the board last year. One of those topics was transition, gender transition. And they noted that there was a paucity of books representing the point of view of people who have experienced regret and wanted to share their views, their cautionary tales. Has that been redressed?
That particular topic?
That particular topic.
I am not aware that that particular topic has had any, I mean, I provided you with a list of books. I didn't review the list of books carefully. I know that the principals did in terms of what was put in there, but I don't know if that particular topic. I do know that the emphasis on making sure that the collection does that balance and the selection criteria is emphasized. I can say to you that that is what is happening.
with regard to political activity, have there been steps taken where, for instance, emails to legislature@maine.gov are instantly flagged for your review?
No, the policy doesn't require that, though. So no, I mean, when I reviewed this policy prior to coming here, it very clearly states the type of activities that would be considered political activity. So political activities include campaigning for or against a candidate, a political party, or an issue, employee using their position to attempt to influence students, parents, or others to vote for or against a candidate or an issue, contacting students, parents, or others for such purposes, wearing apparel with political messages, or displaying campaign paraphernalia while performing work. With the exception, I assume, if I am a social studies teacher and we're doing election unit, we would do that. Soliciting for, collecting funds, or distributing material in connection with campaigning or supportive political issues. So the policy outlines those things that would be considered political activities and provides guidance to staff members to not engage in them, but it doesn't require me to monitor emails and flag emails.
Correct, but that would be something that you could take upon yourself to do.
I have not done that.
You've not done that. The reason that I ask is because there were messages emails from district employees that precipitated this policy. They were advocating for particular legislation that bore directly on matters that this board was in the middle of deliberating. So it seems like it seems to me that there is a reliance upon good behavior rather than a supervision. So there is really no oversight over the...
No, let me just finish that, and then Joe, this is like all policies, Anthony. All policies, we make sure staff are aware of them. They know they are obligated to follow them. We address issues when they happen, but it's no different than sexual harassment or any other policy where there's not that level of oversight, but there is eyes open, paying attention, like listening, dealing with complaints, like all of those things happen for all the policies, but there's no actions that I take where I'm like flagging individual emails and things like that for any policy, this one by itself.
So could I ask, how would you expect to learn that a staff member has violated this policy?
I imagine it'd be the same way we learned in the past. Right? I mean, it sounds like you're suggesting some sort of AI is in place with our email system, or some kind of active monitoring of employee emails to try to root out this problem that you perceive. And it seems that's all Superintendent Med is saying is the policy didn't direct her to do anything that aggressive, and she hasn't done anything that aggressive. So and I'm not sure why you're feeling like she should have done something like that at this point.
I simply asked what I wanted a report on steps taken to ensure that this policy was being followed, and it seems to me that the answer is the same with all other policies. We tell them to follow the policy, and we hope that they do. It seems with this particular policy, the only way that anybody would find out at this point is if somebody makes a FOA request, it turns up, and we find it in the news the way it did last time in an embarrassing situation. So it seems to me an entirely simple thing for an email system to be set up to say these particular email addresses, like to the legislators, for instance, are simply flagged for review. There is no expectation, unless I'm mistaken, that there is no expectation that somebody's district email is private.
But that wouldn't flag, for example, if an employee was reaching out to parents, encouraging them, like,
No,
right?
it wouldn't.
So,
But it
so
would
that
be a
would,
step toward that, would it not?
Yes, but it wouldn't
albeit in an
encompass all of
effective
that.
step, right? I mean, like, why would we?
Why are you saying it's ineffective?
Because it would not necessarily gather much of anything. Like, if people know that that's going to be flagged, there's plenty of other ways around that, right? If someone's really intent on breaking the rules, that's not really going to stop them, you know? And I would say that, you know, I'm not sure why these particular rules are different than other particular rules, right? We put it in the hands of the superintendent to supervise staff and to supervise employees. And we, as per policy, establish rules, but we don't get into the business of necessarily micromanaging how that supervision occurs. It seems like you're inferring that she should have been doing all kinds of proactive things to try to root out and find this activity, which in my mind feels like an awful large waste of time, considering there hasn't been very much of it at all. And in fact,
How would you know?
the only, you mentioned it, there was one instance where there was a problem, and it precipitated us reacting with policy, and otherwise, I'm not aware of anything wrong going on. So, you know, how many times are any of the other rules broken, Anthony? Right? I mean, there's all kinds of ways that the superintendent could be, you know, enforcing the rules, and I think that the rules, the means and methods of her providing that enforcement is not up for us to direct or to like sub, you know, micromanage in that way.
Excuse me, was I directing the superintendent to do anything?
You were
I was asking a question.
You were inferring that she should be taking certain steps. No,
Excuse me,
you were
I was
inferring that she
asking a
should be
question.
taking certain steps.
Excuse me,
And very, very
excuse me,
aggressively,
sir,
actually.
I have the floor.
I'm pretty sure I'm the one that identifies when people have the floor, Anthony. So all I'm telling you is that when you are telling her that she should be doing something over and over again, right, and then saying, well, I was just asking if she should be doing that, I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
One of my jobs is to review the superintendent's performance. We created a framework of behavior that we expect through policy. And I am asking a simple question: what are you doing to ensure that this policy is being followed? This particular policy, not all policies, because this is a policy that I brought forward, and I would like to know how it is being administered. And you seem to think that this is me stepping out of bounds. And I'm sorry, but I think that is an untoward comment, and it flies in the face of what this board is supposed to be doing.
You've been given an answer that it's enforced just like every other policy, and I don't know if there's much more sense in prolonging the discussion, unless anyone else has another question they'd like to ask. Okay.
With regard to IMB, I said
Do you
I
have
had
more
a few
questions?
I said I had a few
No?
questions.
Go ahead.
With regard to policy IMB, which is the teaching of controversial topics, what is the procedure by which a principal or a team leader or whatever reviews lesson plans to ensure that controversial topics are being taught properly within the district?
That would be part of the evaluation, supervision evaluation process that happens on a regular basis where teachers are being observed by principals. It happens in department meetings, for example, at the high school, where social studies teachers may talk about how they're going to instruct the election. It would happen in science network meeting time where they're going to talk about various issues that might be considered controversial in science. It's an ongoing conversation amongst teachers with their administrators about how to approach things, reviewing what the standards are in the learning results to make sure that they're adequately addressing those and doing it in a manner that their learning results directs them. Like, that's just an ongoing conversation. There's not one particular conversation. It is a constant conversation about how to handle particular topics. Health teachers do the same thing. They deal with controversial topics as well. They have those ongoing conversations with each other as well as their administrator about how to handle that.
So this process that is now in place, has
No,
always been in place?
that's common. That is a common practice.
So how is it that policy, that procedure gets followed, and yet we had the instance that we had this past fall that I thought we need to bring forward to both you and the board chair?
So that was difficult because both Evan and I reviewed that library display and we did not believe that it violated the policy. So I understand that you disagree with that. You were clear on that. I understand it. But I did not believe that it violated policy, so we weren't in agreement on that.
So, without getting into too many specifics with that particular case, you gave in your summary, you gave that display a fairly positive review.
Is this a question though about her report tonight? I mean, I think you're starting to try to litigate a specific example of a display you didn't like at this point.
Well, if you would be patient, you would hear the question.
All right, I'll wait for the question.
But now you've interrupted my train of thought. And so now, I'm sorry, it will take a little bit more time, which could have been saved by you not interrupting one of your colleagues on the board. The issue that I had with that particular display was that it omitted particular details which made the entire display rather one-sided. And I brought forward to you that it was ironic that this particular topic should be so one-sided and follow so closely on the heels of such hotly discussed matters in this board just a few months prior. So how is it that this was not given greater scrutiny with regard to policy IMB?
I disagree that it wasn't given greater scrutiny. I disagree with your characterization of it. I am not trying to be argumentative. I am literally saying to you that we don't agree on how that policy was implemented and how it applied to that display. And I felt like it was a significant shift, as did Evan, from the display in the prior year, which in my mind indicated a shift in the practice, which is what the policy required. So I was comfortable with it. And I'm sorry that we disagree on that, but that is just the reality.
It's your reality, I think. My reality is that was an extraordinarily one-sided display, that it was a little bit less provocative because it was less visible, but it was no less one-sided. So I would encourage, if I may, that we take up the topic of IMB and how exactly this board expects things to be administered in this district so that we can be confident that our students are not being plied with the kinds of information through their lessons that we see in the news coming from other districts in this state.
Is there a question in there somewhere, Anthony?
Not this time, Joe.
Okay. Great.
Well, I'd just like to maybe wrap things up and move it along because I'm feeling a bit like there's a difference here between what's being taught in a classroom versus just a display in a hallway that students walk past where there's no actual instruction going on. So I feel like we've deviated from the main point, and if we can move on and table this for
I would agree
future
that
time.
we should move on. Are there any other questions for the superintendent regarding her report? Okay. We will move on to the consent agenda. Again, there are several items here on the consent agenda. The superintendent's reported on several of them. Before I read it out, I just want to remind everyone that any board member can ask for any item here on this consent agenda to be removed and acted upon individually. Is there any such motions? Anyone want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Not seeing anything. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which consists of item 8.1, instructional nominations to be acted upon. Oh, well,
He's making the motion.
oh, you're going to make the motion? Okay, let me get through this
I
here.
have one quick question about something on the consent agenda,
Yeah,
just to make sure. Just because again, I just noticed it for the first time tonight, so I was like, these, the nomination papers, how official are these? Does it matter that one says that they will begin August 2025 and that has different schools, so different administrators suggesting start of school year 25?
Yeah, no, that, we correct that in,
Okay.
Amy Pelletier will get all that
Just
organized.
wanted to know if that was
Thank you,
something we
thank
needed
you,
to bring
yeah.
Good.
Okay.
We were close enough to superintendent questions. We'll let that one go right there.
Thanks, I just wanted to make sure if that was a nitpicky thing we deal with or. if they
No,
do
no,
that.
we'll fix it in our end.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so, don't jump the gun. But
I'm
I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes item 8.1, instructional nominations, which are be acted collectively after nominations have been read by the superintendent, which she read in her report, which is item 8.1.1, Tripp Middle School math teacher, item 8.1.2, the Turner Elementary School teacher, assigned to grade 6 pending certification. Item 8.2, which is to act on the reappointment of the following for the 25-26 school year, which is item 8.2.1, probationary contract teachers from their second year. Item 8.2.2, which is the first continuing contract teachers from their third year. Item 8.3, which is review and adoption of superintendent recommendations for job descriptions. 8.3.1, van driver, which has been revised. Item 8.3.2, bus aide, which is new. I just want to make sure everyone's aware that item 8.4, which is on your agenda, has been struck. There is no Finance Committee recommendation, but it does include item 8.5, which is consideration of plant transportation building recommendation to move forward with the 1,000-gallon temporary water tank solution from Goodwin at $8,500 to allow time for the engineering and research related to the full water needs of Turner Primary School. That was discussed by our PTB report, as well as item 8.6, which is consideration of the Plant Transportation and Building Committee recommendation to use capital repair reserve fund for the Turner Primary School temporary water tank solution in the amount of $8,500. So Kyle, you gonna make that motion?
Nah,
I already wrote it down. I don't want to cross it out.
All right, who's gonna second? A second by Crystal. All those in favor? It is unanimous for the consent agenda. All right, we'll move on to old business. This is item 9.1. I'll entertain a motion for the consideration of Policy Committee recommended second reading and adoption of revised policy JICJ, student use of personal electronic devices at school, and regulations JICJ-R, which is student use of personal electronic devices at school administrative procedures. Would anyone like to make that motion? Crystal, seconded by Kyle. We will start discussion. I think it makes sense for you, Superintendent Med, to explain what's been revised since the first reading.
So nothing's been revised, but we will recommend, so if somebody wants to make that motion, because I can't, the 4th paragraph, student cell phones and other electronic devices may be subject to search if there's reasonable suspicion. We're just recommending that be removed.
Okay. Peter?
Whatever.
Oh, are you making the motion? Okay. Bree is making the motion to delete the 4th paragraph in JICJR. And just to highlight again, that 4th paragraph.
So did Peter second it?
Sure, why not?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Peter's seconding it, just to highlight, that paragraph says, student cell phones and other electronic devices may be subject to search if there is reasonable suspicion that a student is violating board policies, procedures, or school rules, or engaging in other misconduct. So again, we are in discussion now on the proposed revision that was made by Bree and seconded by Peter. Peter, would you like to say something?
Yes, did this go, I realize that half the time, or let me take that back, 4/5 or 3/4 of the time, we'll never be able to open the phone anyways, just because they're locked.
More than that,
So-
99% of the time.
With the exception of mine here, maybe
I mean,
probably they're
it's
all are.
entirely likely that if a kiddo is coming with a problem to Evan, they'll have their phone open and say, like, look at this, right? They'll have their own phone, but it'll be something typically where they're the victim. Does that sound accurate, Evan?
But it just puts into the play that I'm not sure if I led the charge in this one, but I was definitely involved in the charge. I don't want this to go one step too far. Because I have no problem with a consensual parental search. So, that was my push, is to make sure the parents would know that we're gonna do a search. So I don't want to hamstring administration by taking the search option off. I just wanted to make sure that parents were notified before a search took place. So to me, it felt like if we feel that we're not hamstringing ourselves by going this one step further by deleting the whole search option, you have to deal with this one anyway, so I'm kind of,
I mean,
my only concern was the parental notification, of course. I think it's perfectly fine to search a phone if you think there's something wrong with it, but.
Can I answer his question?
yeah.
Peter, I don't think that hamstrings us, partially because what it does is then it would require a conversation with a parent to be like, hey, can we take a look at what's in there? And they may or may not be able to get into it, to be honest with you, but I don't think it puts us behind the eight ball.
That's all I need.
I mean, as long as we can still confiscate a phone,
Yep,
like if
that's-
police need to be, like all those other things are gonna happen.
Again, we're having discussion now about the revision, which is deleting that 4th paragraph. Anyone else have any thoughts on that proposed revision? Seeing none, we'll take a vote to revise the policy to delete the 4th paragraph. All those in favor? Appears unanimous. So the policy is revised. So now we are into discussion about the policy with that paragraph deleted. Any further thoughts around the policy? Again, this is the second reading of JICJ and JICJ-R, student cell phone or student use of personal electronic devices at school. Yeah, yes.
I move to strike in paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what used to be paragraph 6, but which will now be 5.
Yep.
All but the last sentence.
Okay. Is there a second for that?
For the sake of discussion.
Okay, Alex seconds it. So there's a motion on the floor to delete, it's like several sentences in what is on your paper as paragraph 6, but will be paragraph 5 once the former paragraph was deleted. It says, the use of cameras or the camera video function on any device without permission is strictly prohibited on school property, including transportation during the school day or while engaged in school activities. Students are required to obtain permission before photographing or taking videos of any individual. Students are also required to obtain prior permission before posting any photos or videos of individuals taken at school on social media or elsewhere. So that's what would be deleted. We're in discussion, Alex.
I would just wonder if it is redundant. If you're not allowed to use your phone and you can't take a picture. So is it necessary to have the wording specifically related to phones and videos?
This is the number one method of bullying in schools these days. Number one. Kids used to bully with a note. They don't do that anymore. They bully with their phone. They take a picture, they post, they record you when you don't know. Like this is the pervasive bullying activity. Go ahead.
And I would add to that, even at the elementary school, this has happened as well. And it's been over the past several years, because even when I was filling in at Turner Elementary School, this was a pretty significant issue and caused a lot of disruption on the bus.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like I said, I just wonder if it's redundant, But if you feel like it's important to have this specific wording, redundancy is not always negative.
I don't know, Evan, if you want to.
I was gonna say exactly what he just said. Redundancy is not a bad idea.
Go ahead.
I understand where some of the concerns coming from some people who were speaking earlier, but I don't see a way that we can. I very much agree with this whole paragraph. especially when it comes to any sort of student, teacher, or anything else in the district, school. Whether the buildings, the walls, the classrooms, the ceilings, whatever. If there's not a person, I don't really have an issue, but I think it'd be very hard to split it apart. So that's why I probably would vote against this and keep this in at this time. Because I think when it comes to any people or staff, they absolutely cannot be photographed or recorded in any fashion without their permission. And I think that needs to stay in there just to protect that aspect.
Anyone else with thoughts? Kyle, go ahead.
And the fact that it says students are required to obtain permission, who is that coming from to be able to utilize their phone?
Permission to use the phone or permission?
Or like the videotape or whatever. Is
Like
it-
I would be like, Teresa, I'm gonna take your picture. Like it's the person they're
Okay.
doing it to. Right? That's how I interpret that, yeah. So if I'm gonna take a picture of you looking silly, like you know that you look silly, you know I'm taking a picture and you know I'm gonna post it, as opposed to me doing it secretly and then making fun of you behind your back.
Yeah, I guess if just the way that it's worded, it almost seems like I have to obtain permission from, like, say, you got principal or teacher or faculty or something like that before they can do that.
I think the intent is permission from the individual
Yeah,
that's
the
subject to the
individual.
photograph.
Yeah.
But I can understand why you.
The
think that's
intent
clear.
is that it's the person you're taking the picture of or the video of.
Go ahead.
I think some of the comments we heard earlier, mostly are on the first sentence, not taking photos of other people, but that first sentence, taking any photo. Say there was a display or there was something on the board in the classroom that a student thought, hey, I think that seems odd to me, I think I want my parents to see that. As I stand with the policy, they wouldn't be able to snap a quick photo and bring it home and say, oh, this is what was in the classroom today, this doesn't look right to me. They'd have to get permission, and that teacher could very well say, I'm not taking a picture of my board. You're gonna go home and you're gonna make an issue out of it. So I think that, I could see that being more of the concern and not necessarily taking pictures of people. I agree with you, permission. But that first part of how do you balance that with needing permission and a teacher just saying, no, you're not taking a picture of that. And by the time you come back after school, it's gonna be gone.
I don't disagree. I'm going to go to Bree here in a second. I also question the lines that get drawn, between board versus the teacher's desk space or in her drawer, or, I can feel like this could, even without people, I could feel like pictures of the classroom. Where's the line? Yeah.
My concern with removing this is more about this policy as a whole. The point is, we don't want cameras out during the school day as much as possible. And as much as would be interrupting learning, and also, as it says here, including transportation, when you're on a bus, you're part of a field trip, or you're getting ready to go to school, as we've said before, bullying can really take place in those situations. And it's just we're gonna start to, if we take this wording away, I feel like we start to get into some gray areas of, well, I just wanted to take it out to take a picture of the board so I knew it was for homework. Well, why are you being allowed to take your phone out in class? Again, doesn't matter if it's the board, doesn't matter if it's a person, if the policy is, we want to try to get cell phones away as much as possible in the day, and you start to take out wording here, say, well, it could be allowed at this time, it could be allowed this, then what's the point of having this policy? The policy is no cell phones at school and out and available to kids. So taking them out to say, well, I'm gonna take a picture of this thing real quick, just is gonna open up a can of worms and more problems for teachers in the classroom. To say, no, put your phone away, no pictures, right?
Absolutely. I did see Crystal hand up first, yeah.
To that point, may I ask Mr. Shaw a question?
Sure.
And if you don't have it, that's fine. If it is truly no cell phones, and my daughter comes to freshman year and she sees something that she doesn't like, and she comes home and tells me about it because she's following the rules and not having her cell phone, and I email you or call you and I say, oh, Liz saw something on a wall or whatever, I would assume that there would be discretion that myself or any other parent could come and view it, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can have a conversation about it and figure out what we need to do.
Thank you.
first and foremost, I was very excited. This has been one of the issues that I wanted to bring forward, and when I found it was coming forward, I was very excited. And it boils down to me where I feel that once the student enters the school bus or enters the school building, cell phone should be gone, period, end of question. So that's kind of where it boils down to. We could think of lots of other areas, but I think that's just the way it should be, so. If my son saw something that he didn't like, first of all, he'd have to communicate with me, so I'd probably never hear about it. But if he did, I would, I'd have to address it, and I would believe him, and then talk to the teacher, and probably believe the teacher. But the only thing I did have concerns about, but to me it's not worth putting it in there, because I believe the cell phone should be out of the school period, is special, and I'm sure they will be dealt with, like whether it be projects or art or something, something that never's gonna come home, but something you're proud of that you wanna show your parents. I believe there are kids that do that. I've heard about them. So maybe, if some way they, could get that to them, that was my only concern.
Yeah.
But as far as the kid's cell phone, start of school, end of school, bus route included, I do believe there is some gray area when it comes to athletics, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, athletics is already a
Because
gray
those are
area.
public events that, anybody can go to a game, so, yeah.
But anyways, so.
Did I have anyone else's hand up? I think that would have been Anthony.
So a few things. One is this is a personal electronic devices at schools policy. This policy would not stop somebody from taking a picture with a standard camera. It's not a cell phone. Somebody could have a recording device. Would that count? It's not a cell phone. Maine, I will remind everyone that Maine is a one-party state. You do not need someone's permission to make a recording of them in any public space. I'm disappointed that there are folks on this board who were so concerned, so deeply concerned about students' First Amendment rights a year ago when it came to allowing them access to sexually explicit materials. And yet you have no qualms whatsoever about abridging their First Amendment rights when it comes to this. Many of the parents who in the survey that was sent home, there were several parents who said, I send my kid for safety with their phone. I want them to have that phone. I want them to be able to contact me, and I want to be able to contact them. The cell phone has become, and please recall, the last time we discussed this, I don't have a cell phone. I don't like cell phones, and I would be thrilled if parents didn't send their kids to school with phones. But I think that rather than government telling parents, you cannot do this, I think this is a great instance of the school district inviting parents to please take the pledge. They're in the power position. All they have to do is say, sorry, no phone for you at school, and then you can't have one. There's a high-profile case in Maryland right now of a student. He's a graduating student. He's going into the Marines. He used his phone to document his mistreatment by the school district when he brought it to their attention that they were not following a particular policy. And a policy like this would prohibit him from making that kind of recording that he will be able to use in court to sue his district. We have had documents, recordings made by students in this district which have been quite useful in exposing things that I think were things that needed to be brought to people's attention. And so I am going to urge you all to think very, very carefully and vote with me on striking this from this amendment. I don't think that the public school system has yet earned back sufficient faith and trust to tell parents that their kids are not able to make these kinds of recordings.
I just want to add one thing about the safety aspect. I just want to remind everyone, we got a statement from the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office saying that the types of communications between students and parents with cell phones is actually makes these situations less safe. I just wanted to highlight that point. Go ahead, Peter.
I just want to direct towards Carrie, or I hate to put you on the spot, but he's mostly right. To me, the definition of electronic devices would include cameras, traditional tape recorders, anything like that. Would that not be covered? I just hate to see it going out and have some confusion out there as we move forward.
I'd just say the second paragraph does list.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, kind of a definition. It does not necessarily say like,
I just want to make sure that, you know, I just don't want somebody listening to this start thinking, the M3P, okay.
that it doesn't necessarily say video cameras. You know, it's focused on smartwatches, smart devices, electronic games, and MP3.
So I think it's important, if we go back to the first, the JICJ, because we're focusing on the procedures.
Yep.
So let me just point to a really specific statement, right? The devices may not be used at school or during school activities in any manner that disrupts the educational process or violates board policy or rules. So if a device came into school, right, and we're not sure if it fits here, but it's doing that and it's disrupting, like that's the piece, right? If it's disrupting the educational process, is sort of the rules by which we would sort something like that out, where we're not, you know, it's not listed here, but now somebody brings in something and all of a sudden it becomes problematic.
Yes, Scott.
Perhaps.
So if I'm reading it correctly, but just keep reading it over, but I can't really see where it says about the phones are still in the presence of the student the whole time.
Yeah.
So realistically, like I guess until they disrupt or do anything like that, that's when that phone goes away. It's not like they're dropping them off at the front office.
They're not turning them in.
Yeah.
That's not the procedure.
There was some talk about the bags. there's
Yonder
some
bags,
talk about all
yeah, we
kinds
don't
of things,
have,
but
we need $35,000 for those. It's not in the budget.
Negative.
Any other, again, we're right now focused on the amendment that's on the floor, which is the deletion of several statements at the beginning of paragraph 6. Are there any more thoughts around the deletion of those statements?
Just to make it clear, the wording as it currently stands, it says the use of cameras, first and foremost. So it doesn't even say electronic or phone, it says cameras. So it is there that any type of camera, whether that is a Nikon or whatever, right, like it's right there. Or the video camera / video function on any device. So that's where it then brings in the electronic piece. So I just want to state that that is in the language. It's there in what would be taken out.
You've had a few turns here, so try to be concise this time.
I've spoken once on this issue.
Okay.
I think Peter's spoken 3 times.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I would like an apology for that.
There is no way I'm apologizing. Just
Well,
go ahead.
then I suggest that you keep such comments to yourself, sir.
Let's just remember our norms. Thank you.
That's what I'm asking for. I would like to be treated equally. The policy is for personal electronic devices. A single lens reflex camera is not a personal electronic device. If this policy wants to encompass all cameras, I think that we then should be thinking about amending the name of the policy and its scope.
All right, any more thoughts on the current proposed revision to delete these statements from paragraph 6? Any more thoughts around that proposed revision? Seeing none. We're going to take a vote. Again, a yes vote is to delete the statements, a no vote is to let them remain. So all those in favor of deletion of those statements? Is that 2? Alex and Anthony. All those against? Are there any abstentions? The motion is not carried. So we're going to go back to general discussion about the policy. Again, we have deleted paragraph 4, but otherwise the policy remains as you see in front of you. Any further discussion? Okay, again, this is the second reading and acceptance of the policy. We'll probably, unless I see any further discussion, we'll move to a vote. Okay, again, a yes vote will approve this second reading and will effectively adopt this policy. All those in favor? All those opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Was Alex yes or no?
Alex
I can't-
is a yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear.
Probably the wrong time, but it has to do with this.
Okay.
Can I ask Evan a question real quick?
I'm supposed to be talking outside of, what is it?
It has to do with this policy.
The policy we just approved?
Yes.
Okay.
I was just curious, how's it getting, the information getting out to the student body?
About the policy?
Yeah.
We put out a couple of videos, it's been talked about in HPT. We will now talk about it more.
Just curious.
All right. I can find my agenda again. We will move on to new business. Item 10.1, which is a presentation from the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Teresa Gillis, of the Visual and Performing Arts Curriculum Standards.
Are we on the video behind us or no?
I think we might be.
We
Let's
have a-
see
we
if
have a
I
handout
can
right now.
do
Let's
it,
see.
because I did not.
We have a handout for you too.
Yes, there's 2 handouts. One is in color, back to back, and the other one has some
Did you
color,
send some
also
that
back
way?
to back. Yes,
Oh, okay.
I divided them
Very
out.
efficient.
I used to teach kindergarten.
Not a rookie.
Okay. Mr. Parker, do you know what this room would be called? Music room?
That would be a good guess.
Okay, and if it's not, would it be called?
Caberly?
Caberly iPad Cast? That's not it.
That sounds sketchy.
It does. Do this, but it's
Probably in Thailand.
I assure you oriented.
Did you go, okay,
This is all across Pacific.
It's a long flight, but Australia has one.
I saw it, but it jumped.
Just went through
A couple thousand in this room?
crammed in an airplane.
There we go. Come on.
Which one was that?
We will master the technology in every building of this district before we die.
Just kangaroos and koalas.
Okay, all right, all right.
That seems a little
okay.
less fatal.
Fair enough, fair
I
enough.
stand if that's okay with everyone. All right, so this evening, just me, am presenting on the visual and performing
Do you want me to touch
arts
the buttons?
curriculum. Oh, that's true if I left them.
I was like, do you have a clicker now? You're getting so high.
No, I don't have a clicker,
I'll
sorry.
press the buttons for you.
Okay, so you do have the handout that matches this PowerPoint with a little spot in case you want to take notes, and then the other packet that you have, I'll explain when I get to it. Okay, so.
Press the buttons.
All right, so to begin, I wanted to highlight the Visual and Performing Arts Curriculum team. Iva Damon, the network leader at Levitt, she's also the VPA coordinator and an art teacher at Levitt. Ashley Hodgkins, a music teacher at Levitt, and the assistant coordinator for VPA really handled they took the lead for art and music. Katie Corser, Matt Drewell, Rebecca Trujillo, Mia Zellner are art teachers. Melissa Newcomb, Jack Dodell, and Stephen are music teachers. And this group worked a little bit differently than the other one. They all wanted to work on it instead of us picking some representatives. And it made sense given the different levels and the fact that these teachers teach, in most cases, in multiple buildings.
So they worked on 3 workshop days. October 11th, I joined them and we got started and things went very well. On January 27th, they worked under the guidance, the teachers worked under the guidance of Iva and Ashley. And on March 14th, Iva had the whole group and they were just doing some refinement. So those are the dates that we worked. It's a little timeline of our work. We started in August. That's when I learned that they all wanted to be part of the work. We reviewed the main learning results. We reviewed the main early learning and development standards. That work was done by the pre-K teachers because we do not have a pre-K music teacher, although it sounds like the students at Green Central School got to do a concert, so that's exciting. We worked to prioritize the standards. We selected the ones, the teachers selected the ones that they felt were essential based on their knowledge of art and music. We reviewed and revised using Atlas, our curriculum platform. Then we finalized the essential and supporting standards by going through one more time. At the last curriculum committee meeting, there was a presentation that Iva Damon and Rebecca Trujillo, both art teachers, were present at. And tonight is the school board presentation, which takes us into May. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of some important considerations. Would you like to sit or are you standing? I sent somebody over here. I was like, wait, hold on one second. There you go, Kyle. So one component of main early learning standards is approaches to learning, creativity, invention, and imagination. So this is where the pre-K standards were pulled from. Things to note, as I mentioned, pre-K students do not have separate music or art classes. Also, pre-K students attend school for 2 full days a week, beginning after Labor Day. So if you think they have less than half, they have less than 80 days that they attend school. If none of their attendance days falls on a snow day, a remote day, or a holiday.
And they don't get sick.
Or if they're sick. So that's a Monday, like we have a Monday holiday in May, they won't be having their Monday session. So that's something to remember. Other considerations, you can advance the slide, thank you. So there are 5 visual and performing arts strands in the main learning results: dance, music, media arts, visual arts, and theater. Students in grades K through 6 have 1 music and 1 art class a week. Their classes are scheduled for 40 minutes. If school is not held because of no school, a holiday or snow day, or if it's canceled because there's no substitute, that class is not able to be rescheduled. We talked a little bit about that at the curriculum committee, and the real reason is, besides schedules, is that our teachers are teaching in multiple schools, and if they tried to reschedule the next day, they would be due to be in another school, so therefore wouldn't be able to reschedule it. And because of the way our specialist schedules are meshed at the elementary level, if an art teacher is not in a school, it's usually because the music teacher's there and offsetting. So it gets to be quite challenging. Middle school students have 1 trimester of art and 1 trimester of music, both their 7th grade year and their 8th grade year. Those classes are scheduled for 70 minutes. They're every other day. So they might meet 3 times one week, 2 times the next, and if class is not held, there's no makeup or substitute. The class is not able to be rescheduled because of their schedules. And at the high school, students are required to take 1 fine art credit, which equals a year. Also, fine arts courses are available as electives. So this is a little bit different than math in that students are not all taking it all of the time. They don't have full year courses for particularly our middle school and high school. So if I were at the high school, for example, I could take a year of art and then I would be done. All right, and then on the last slide.
Question?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? Just
Sure.
quickly about the middle school next year, will that change because of the lack of language arts? Does it affect music or art? Or do we know yet?
We do know, so Jana and I were communicating to be clear today, and she said that this is what should be here.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's actually that way this year. I think music is once a year, but I don't want to second guess what I was told.
Yeah, it was in 7th grade.
It feels like it's
8th
one,
grade.
yes, so this
Okay.
will be for next year with the new curriculum. Okay, that was a good question. Any other questions before I breeze to the next part? Okay, so the last page is a slide, and I just wanted to remind you, and we have a new board member now, so you can see the grade level leaders, that this is going to be in this packet that you'll see.
We don't offer dance courses. We do not have a dance teacher, so this is a whole strand in the main learning results that is not going to have essential standards nor be assessed. In music, you'll see the little green bubble there that says essential standard. I was asked if I could highlight the essential standards, and you'll notice in your packet, they are highlighted. I had to do that by hand because there is no way in Atlas to produce them that way, but
We'll
I
get you a
wanted
star.
to do them because I thought it would be clearer, and I'm open to feedback on these presentations.
That's dedication right there.
Oh, you know,
Thank
kissing
you,
me with my
that does
highlighter.
help, thank you.
Well, it does, you're right, Peter, it makes it more clear. And then on the last part of the slide, there are supporting standards. So when you look at your packet, which mine is not stapled, the first 4 pages, I wanted you to have so you could have some information, because there's no vote on this tonight. The vote is gonna happen at the next board meeting. So if you cared to, you could read through these 4 pages that give an overview of the visual and performing arts standards. And then the first sheet you'll see, I tried to highlight so you would see what grade levels. The first one is pre-K. The way the MELD's listed is 46 to 60 months, so 4 and 5-year-olds. I highlighted the ones that are essential, and the ones that are not highlighted are supporting standards. So we talked about the essential standards are ones that are assessed and prioritized. The supporting standards are taught but not assessed and may show up again in other years as something that is assessed. So I did want to make sure I did them back to back to save on paper. So if you look at the top, you should be able to see what grade level, and then all the ones that are highlighted are the essential standards, and the ones that are not highlighted but listed are supporting standards. I don't know if anyone has any questions specific.
Anything for Ms. Gillis now?
I'll just suggest that we'll send this out as backup next time electronically, but I don't think I want to print it again. So like if you want the hard copy, hold on to it, but we'll give it to you electronically again.
It's already ready to
Yeah,
go out
so just
as
like, it's
backup,
not gonna be
because it'll
another
an
piece of
agenda
paper
item
next
for
time.
vote.
Gabby, you've trained them well.
Yes.
No, she did a lot of highlighting and then color copying here.
I highlighted with my own highlighter.
Color copying.
Yes, if it's not in color, you can't see it as well.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gillis. We'll move on to entertaining a motion for the approval of the pre-K special education coordinator teacher paid by the Department of Education. Someone like to make that motion? Crystal, any second there? Alex? I imagine this would be best to start with you, Carrie.
So we, as you have been informed, are going to be taking responsibility for special education for pre-K students, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. Right now, if we have students come to us in pre-K who need special education, they get referred to CDS. 3-year-olds get referred to CDS. We will be taking on that responsibility by law. We have to do that within the next couple of years anyway. And if we do it this year, it comes with money. So just repeating all this, I know you already know it, but just sort of reminding everyone. So we will get a budget from the state. It comes, think about it like as a grant. It just comes through us. It's not some part of the budget. It's not part of the budget process. It's a separate pot of money that we get depending on how many students we have. Right now, it is supposed to fully fund all the services that we need to provide for students. I think others have said, we'll see how long that lasts, but for right now, so this is not part of the budget process, but we do need staff to do this. So we are, we have posted for this pre-K special education coordinator / teacher. We need at least one person to oversee all of this and make sure that students who have IEPs get their services met. So it is a motion to create the position, and then the second one will be the job description.
So, go ahead, Peter.
I assume, do we just get a list from the state, or?
Yeah, we actually are already looking at that list now. Yeah.
So it's not up to us to send out information, go try to
We
find
do
them?
have to do that.
We have to find them as well?
Yep, so that, we already have that obligation now, it's called child find. We have policy around that, but it's the requirement. So if we suspect a student has a disability, we're required to sort of like act in a manner that's in the best interest of that student. But we will have to, I'm sure we'll be putting things on our Facebook page,
gonna say, but-
schools.
That would be in the school setting.
Yep, so
that child fund.
yep, so we're gonna have to.
This child fund is much broader.
Correct, so we're gonna have to probably provide some documentation for daycares to post in their buildings, places where kids might be. We'll post it in the schools too, because there's lots of people who come and they have younger children, they have children in the schools and they've got younger ones, and they may go like, I think my kid's not here yet, but I think they have some issues. That would be our obligation to sort of follow up on that.
Do you know approximately at this point how many we're gonna have to be following?
I would guess 30 to 40, but don't hold me to that.
And these, just to clarify, I believe these aren't anything to do with this. They don't come to the school at all,
They might, yeah, no, they might come for services, yep.
for specialized services.
Yep, the obligation is, Rebecca's gonna hopefully be proud of me that I know all this information. The obligation is up to 6 hours a week. So we may end up, depending on the numbers, developing a program within one of the schools. If we have enough kids, some of them may go out place, some of them may get services in their childcare, they may get services at the school. Like it really, there's not like a one size fits all.
Anyone else?
Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Number 9, can we get that to be present tense instead of past tense?
Yeah, I found,
Well-
number 1 also had a funky, but that's on the
Hold on
job
a second.
description.
Yeah, I
We're
just
not
wanna
on there.
highlight-
We're not on that.
There's gonna be a,
Okay.
the next agenda item will be to review the job description. This is just to authorize the job itself right now. Any further discussion around the creation of the position, period? See,
I
yes?
do have a question too. So would this position, as it's being /teacher, would they live in one school?
Not
and-
necessarily, no. They may
So-
travel around.
So my question would be more about why having it /teacher? I feel like this role and the next part has a lot on the plate just as a coordinator, so why do we need to still include it as a teacher?
Because they may provide direct instruction. But until, I mean,
But I don't
you know,
feel
I
like
may
we
be bringing you
have-
another position, like, we don't know. So we know we have to have this, we know we need that person to coordinate this, but we also, it's possible they'll deliver direct instruction. I mean, it just is, it's unknown right now how big a job this will be, and if we have enough staff.
Anthony?
So this is paid for by the state?
Yep.
For how long?
As long as they decide they're gonna pay for it. But the legal obligation is going to be on us from here on out, regardless of whether or not the state pays for it, just like special ed for kindergarten through grade 12.
Anyone else? Thoughts around the creation of this position? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote again. Vote in favor is to approve the creation of this position. All those in favor? That is unanimous, I believe. We'll move on. Item 10.3, now Bree. We'll take a motion to review and adopt the superintendent recommended job description of pre-K special education coordinator and teacher. So you should have that here in your packets. Is there a motion on the floor for that?
So moved.
Peter, a second. Kyle, discussion. Bree, if you want to jump right in. She already knows.
There's two.
Yeah, the first one.
Yeah, number 1, it's coordinated, it's supposed to be coordinate. And number 9 is supported, it's supposed to be support. So we'll fix that.
All right.
I think that's the only ones though, after last meeting's fiasco.
Anyone else comments on the job description? Okay, seeing none, again, a yes vote is to approve the job description. All those in favor? I believe that's unanimous. Move on to item 10.4, which is consideration of Finance Committee recommendation to apply for private family medical leave plan instead of remaining with the state-paid family medical leave plan. Is there a motion on the floor for that?
So moved.
Peter, seconded by Bree. Would someone from the Finance Committee like to explain the recommendation?
I will let Gabby explain it, because it's a little more in-depth.
So with the state family medical leave plan, we, as all employees, had to start contributing effective January 1st to this plan that will go into effect May 1st, 2026. Starting April 1st, we had the option to apply for a private plan, which would then allow us to opt out of contributing until May 1st, 2026, and pay for an insurance, a third-party insurance company, to oversee a plan in which it had to be substantially equivalent to what the state was providing. We went out to several companies and received bids. What it will do is it will save the employee and the district roughly $65,000 each collectively, so, $130,000 for the 13 months, starting April 1st through April 1st, 2025 through April 30th, 2026. At that time, whatever payroll starts in May, all employees, regardless of collective bargaining agreements, will have to start contributing. In addition to that savings, the rates will be slightly lower. We received rates of 0.98 and 0.94% as opposed to the 1% for the main state plan. That will be split 50-50 between employee and employer. And we will, if approved, we will refund all employees the amount contributed from April 1st forward. The amount from January 1st through March 30th is gone. That's been paid to the state. That is part of their bucket. So the Finance Committee has brought to the board to approve the use of MetLife, which is the lowest rate at 0.94%. And that rate is locked in, I don't know if I said that,
You
for
did.
2 years. I did say it, all right, thank you.
Well, not, I'm sorry. In
Oh,
the subcommittee,
finance.
you did.
So that rate is locked in until the end of August 2028.
Was this a unanimous vote?
Yes.
Yes.
But they just talked about it today,
Ah,
because we just sorted it out in the last week or so,
Yesterday.
yesterday.
Peter, go ahead.
The only other interesting bit was we're not allowed to join into the state plan again. So say the MetLife plan goes kaput for 3 years, which
We
I
would
was,
have to find another third-party administrator for a private plan. Though I do think that that would fall into some equivalent financial burden
yeah.
if they went out of business, so we could go back into the state plan.
Okay.
It'd have to be a major issue for us to jump to the state plan. It is an option, but
I will also add that going with an insurance company like this, there's a broader pool of financial money coming in from a multitude of different insurance, insured people or groups, as opposed to the state plan just being for the state of Maine and the people that are contributing or employers that are contributing in the state of Maine. You're looking at a national company who has been doing this kind of thing for much longer than the state of Maine.
I didn't catch the savings again, right? What was the savings?
13 months,
Yeah.
roughly $130,000 between employee and employer.
But that's just because we wouldn't have to contribute right now.
That's right.
And then
So-
are you asking about the savings
Yeah.
between staying
Beyond
with the
that,
state?
it's
Yes.
about $17,000 a year.
Okay.
About, again, between employee and employer.
the big chunk is next year.
Yeah. Anyone else with thoughts around that? Questions? Okay, a yes vote here on this will be to approve the recommendation to leave the state plan and apply for private family medical leave. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
And this was an application, which you're pretty sure, they could say no to us,
I'd say no.
Yeah.
Sure.
but we're awfully nice, so I doubt they would.
All right,
Maybe
item
not.
10.5, I'm going to change the wording of this just a bit, just to say that I'll entertain a motion to have the superintendent provide us with a report on the fiscal year 26 budget development process, and we can provide her with discussion and feedback as we go. Is there a motion on the floor for that?
So moved.
Seconded by Crystal. Carrie, do you want to kick off the conversation?
Yeah, so if you recall, for those of you who were here, we made some pretty substantial changes to the budget process. Instead of having a workshop and a board meeting every Thursday for, I don't know, 100 years? No, 5 weeks. We sort of reduced the number of board meetings, kept those every other week, and did 2 really long workshops to sort of hear all the information. The one flaw in the plan was this year, that first meeting after February vacation, in the past and was true this year, was supposed to be sort of the initial presentation of the budget, but we had a storm day. So things got a little wonky. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about the process and whether or not you preferred it to what had happened in the past. I think Ashley and Alex, you guys didn't participate in what it used to be. You came to some, I think, Ashley, when we were doing it. And Jenny, obviously, whatever you've watched is what you are familiar with. So I guess thinking, while it's still fresh in our head, I'm curious to know if people want to continue with that process or do something different.
Yeah, I just want to highlight again, what we did before this year was, over a series of many meetings, just tackle a few warrant articles in front of the meeting and then have a regular meeting after that, right? Versus what we did this year is we set aside 2 big days and just had full-on budget workshop in 2 big sessions to get through all the warrant articles, then with some follow-up workshops afterwards. So kind of that, I think that's the big question is, should we stick with those 2 big workshop nights like we had this year, or should we break that back up into smaller workshops ahead of our meetings throughout the spring? Anyone?
I thought it worked well. I know we had the snow day in there. The only part that I thought was maybe lacking, and Peter brought it up when we were in Leeds, I think. I feel like the board should, maybe not come to a consensus, but should be able to give administration more guidance ahead of time. I know that Carrie had a feel for it, and in her initial meetings, walked back some of the requests from the departments. But it wasn't necessarily at our guidance. So I guess maybe it would probably end up falling sometime before February vacation. But just approach the subject of like where our heads are at as far as the overreaching, numbers, not necessarily department specific, but just the, and we talked about the goal being the 8%. And I think maybe if she got that ahead of time, it could have saved some, redundancy, I guess.
So that'd be something that could be asked for in January or early February.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily need to be right up against it. It could be any time before.
So maybe, just have like a little preview workshop or
Yeah,
something?
and I know Carrie probably would have an idea of where things are heading, ahead of time. Not that it has to be hyper specific, but.
Typically at the ED 279, like that's really that's when it gets real.
Yeah,
Like,
The end of January.
yeah, that's the end of January, so that's when you know like how hard is this gonna be?
Right.
And that, yeah.
I have no problem with the 2 session. I did have some concerns, we talked about it when we had the snow day, to make sure that we had the time to actually absorb the discussion and so forth. It worked out in the end. A couple slight issues on presentation in the evenings that I think we learned from that, which, the microphone issues and stuff like that,
Oh, thank you, yeah. I wanna talk about that.
And to emphasize, one of the areas that I'd like to make it easier for the people at home as well as the people in the audience is to understand or have, and I think our website does it, the availability to follow along with the budget. Our budget is available. My understanding is our budget was actually available online.
Mm-hmm.
But to emphasize that even more, to make sure that everybody at home or in the audience knew that, yeah, okay, you have the ability, if you want to follow along without printing the books, because otherwise it just looks like a bunch of us sitting up here looking at papers where they're out there going, what you looking at? So that, as for what Alex was talking to, I think that is very important. I wouldn't, I'm going back the old days, it kind of was the number 2 thing. And it happened second, as far as the board went. And that was where it worked for me anyways, personally, was the board, we had our initial presentation, because that gives the idea, you know where things are coming in, how bad stuff is, or how good stuff is, or so forth. And then at that point, there's the go around of saying, okay, what is the board feeling comfortable at? We've had our initial, this is what I'm bringing forward. Okay, we know we're gonna need to make cuts, how big are cuts, and what do you think at that point? So that, I guess, to me, that's where it should be located. Prior to the whole budget process, getting a feel from us is going to be, half of us are gonna be 2, 3, whatever's payroll, that's all we want, and others will be more, so that's gonna be given. But once we see the initial numbers, and then we can get a feel of, okay, what can we absorb, and then actually give you a number to work with. Because I'll say it, I said it a lot over budget season, I'll say it again now. When it comes down to the cuts, the vast majority of them, I want the administrators to direct me where to make those cuts.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in there with an axe.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I will, and usually I get blunted, but I feel the majority of it should come from them, not us.
I'm glad you brought up the AV stuff.
Yeah, I
Is that what you were
know.
just about to touch
Yeah,
on?
I was.
Okay.
So actually, Wally and I had a conversation about this. And I think if you guys want to address the sound in a room, the only way to do that is we gotta pick one place and we can't rotate. And then he can solve the problem, but we can't rotate if we do
Turner for
that.
sure, yes.
No, I mean, what I was thinking was, what
That's the
already
only thing.
has an AV system is probably the Levitt Auditorium. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
But
no,
but
setting
was-
up microphones, like,
I don't know.
I'm not sure, I mean, I could ask him where he thinks, which location he thinks would be the easiest to set up. I don't think, but we cannot rotate and solve that problem.
I think that is the problem I think we have with, like you said, the rotating meetings. And I
Yes.
think we should keep the meetings rotating, but I think we could have those budget workshops in the same place. Because that's when we really get spread out. I don't think there's another time when we really spread the room out like we have in
And
those
some
study
rooms are better
sessions.
than others for sound, like, so if there's direction on that, I think,
Well, I think you hit it on the nose. Talk to the guy in charge of all electronics in the district, and he'll tell you, no, you don't want that room, no, you don't want that room.
yeah.
Nothing against green, honest.
Our gym is.
I'm between 2 leads, so I'm feeling safe.
I grew up
But,
in Green.
but unless it's changed, the gym here in Green has a lot of noises that go on continually. We have a bunch of stuff out back that talks a lot.
Okay. So, we'll ask Wally.
Just saying.
Yeah, we'll ask Wally.
Okay, so I'll work on that, and I
But I
think
feel
we
safe
can
up here.
settle on it when we come
The
up with,
ghosts.
when we agree on this process next year.
Go ahead.
My feedback, the calendar and how it was set up and everything, I'm fine with that. My feedback has to do with paper. So, because we get so much, those budget binders are huge, and then for multiple weeks, we're getting multiple colored papers going in. So we can put this on as a discussion for later. I'd love to be able to see that perhaps in general, the school board could look at using some of the discarded laptops that aren't completely outdated, for those that would prefer to have an electronic device to be able to read all documents, all of this. Like every week we're getting these packets of paper all the time, and the huge binder would be a lot easier and cost effective if we just had digital copies to be able to look at all the documents, and then we could pull up multiple different tabs to be able to compare.
I think it's a really good question, is like, how could we deal with our paper usage? I think across the board, not even just budget books.
Correct.
Right?
I mean, I know Kyle likes to have
He needs to start his
starters
fires.
for
in the
his
winter.
fires in the winter time, and I'm not saying every single board member would have to have a device. They can still choose to have paper, but I think that in general, getting rid of the budget binders and going digital. Peter, did you listen to the first part of my sentence? I said, not every board member has to go digital, they can still have paper
Well,
binders, but those that would
Suggesting
prefer,
there's an opt-out
yeah,
of paper.
opt in, opt out, however you want to phrase
The only
it.
thing I would
But
want
we use so much, and every week we're coming in and getting another 3 dozen pieces of paper we have to take time to put into a binder. Some of us, not all of us, would prefer to have that digitally.
The only thing I worry about is if we've got half the people that want laptops prepared for them and other people want
It
paper,
would
so
just
maybe
be
people
the
just bring their own
same as-
devices.
It's the same
right?
as the backups
I
for
was
all
gonna say,
of
because we
our.
get it all
But-
emailed to us.
We get it all
It does-
emailed.
Yeah, it
No.
potentially,
It's already digital,
yeah.
and then it has
I
to
made
get
it digital,
printed,
sure.
correct?
I scan
Like,
it.
that's, you don't handwrite all of those
I
documents.
might, you don't know that.
Your handwriting's extremely neat.
Right?
So it just is saving a step for those that would prefer to have, like, I already have back issues, I don't need to carry that binder around.
Worried about this point going too far, but yes, go ahead, Peter.
Write it down and take it.
My only concern, to be honest with you, my prior time on the board, it was almost all digital. The budget book still existed. We had not, this pile that was not here. If you wanted it, you printed it yourself.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Martha never told me that.
Yeah, that's how it was prior to COVID. There was 2 or 3 board members who requested and would have their special packet for them. Harris, Berdine was one of them. But anyways, I would have a concern, especially at the budget, without having us with something that is operational, that we can look at and go through. I'm just picturing 9 or 7.5 or whatever laptops here, trying to operate, especially if we're getting some old used ones. But also, I picture dilemmas. I've seen many a presentation here that has taken a lot longer than it should have.
Dang it.
If, we could have had a paper board presentation longer than the AV presentation. So that'd be my only concern when it came to those meetings.
There's always that.
But anyways, I'm old-fashioned and I
You're
believe in the
in the
logging
same
industry
location.
to stay.
I think this is bigger than just the budget process.
Yes.
And I think it has to
That's
do
why I
with
said
all of our
just
meetings.
table it.
Yeah, so
Just write-
I think we
make
should
a
come
note.
back to it because I think it's worthy of further discussion, but.
I don't need an
Crystal.
answer on it.
I appreciated the condensed 2 nights or whatever it was. And refresh my memory, when we had the snow day, did we tack that beginning part onto, and I know that we had like a day at the end if needed. Can we slide the whole thing so that doesn't happen again? Next, like, can we
What doesn't happen?
use that extra if needed?
Oh.
Like, right out of the gate,
Just
if it
postpone
happens,
everything.
that first one again. Just because,
In other
It
words, don't
became-
combine the 2.
right, because it is a lot, even when we do budget, like, I wish we didn't have to have a board meeting at all during that time, just because it is so intense and it is so
I
much
know.
information. And like, I felt like rushed when, we're like, oh, we have to have it below 10 or whatever, and I'm like, yes, and then I'm like, wait a minute, but do we? And I know, but it made me feel a little rushed in that respect. But overall, I really like having that condensed part.
Yeah,
to
that
just
was,
focus
it
on
was,
just
I mean, it was a
that.
long night, like,
Yeah.
yeah, no question. So I think yeah.
And I really do think that snow day really made it feel even that much worse too.
Yeah.
But I think the message of starting earlier makes perfect sense. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just gonna say, I think the 2 nights worked well, or trying to do whatever works out. My only other thought would be, I remember at the end, when we were trying to look at things to remove or questions, that a lot of staff weren't there for that last budget meeting.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe having everyone there that last lunch, so if there are last minute items, that they can help answer questions and not feel like the board's putting you on the spot and there's no one there to help.
Very good.
The only thing I'll say to that is I think what compounded that as well was, again, kind of that missing the beginning, right? And not being as prepared when staff was there. And so that when we did have more questions, it felt like staff wasn't there. I feel like, again, it's hard to have staff come a lot. It is, I mean, you know, but I think, I almost feel like we just need to think, maybe, rather than just saying we should definitely have them there for the last vote, maybe we should talk about it again next year if we think we're getting close. If we think we need to bring staff back, maybe 2 or more case by case, then definitely do it or not, I don't know. It might feel different. The budget has definitely felt very different year to year since I've been here. This particular year was hard, right? I think in prior years, I'm not so sure we needed to have staff there at the end, but this particular year we did, in some of your minds, and it would have been helpful, that last meeting, to have staff there, but we didn't. So we might not feel like we need it next year. But, yeah.
I want to thank Ashley for bringing up, that was a big issue at the very end meeting, and I think no matter what the year is, I do think that the final meeting should have full staff.
Okay.
Or at least every department there, because who knows what's going to be questioned at that last meeting. And we got 2 or 3 times we asked about something and we're just so, well, we don't, the people here aren't here, so we can't really. And so I do agree, and I thank Ashley for reminding me of that, because I didn't forget that one.
Again, I'll say that I think this year that felt particularly frustrating at the end to have questions like that. But I think in future years, if we get started a bit sooner, hopefully we can have some of those issues come out sooner in the process when staff is there.
Well, I think that, and just to remind people, like, health insurance was such a shocker. Like, I think that was the thing that sort of like blew things up at the end. So I think it's something to be mindful of if we find ourselves in that place again, where we've got what we think is a good plan and then the final number blows it all up and we have to do something, so.
All right, so I think there's some general agreement that the more concentrated kind of double workshops was an improvement over the many pre-meeting workshops. Is that generally, some heads nod? And it'd be a good idea to get started sooner and hopefully make sure the staff's around when we have questions for staff towards the end. Am I hearing anything else that I didn't just, and we'll come back to paper at some point, I think, later. Yeah.
Just had a thought, if it's a lot to ask staff to come in person, they can come in over Zoom.
Oh.
And then that last meeting be live, if that makes it easier for all of them to be.
What are you glaring at me for?
That's a technical issue.
Well, one of the,
Technology,
Because
right?
they'd only have to be sitting there
Yeah.
waiting to answer a question if they happen to be relevant to it.
the hard part about Zoom are all the public meeting laws around Zoom too. And we did try it once when Bree was at a workshop, right?
Work-related event.
Right, and there was a lot that we had to do to prepare that in a way that would meet public meeting requirements. And
So we had this conversation actually earlier, what I need to go back to if all board members are in person, do we have to do all that stuff?
Oh,
That's what I don't, and so I said I would go back and look at because we were talking about the auditor presenting through Zoom and whether or not that means we have to open it up. And I don't think it does, but I'm gonna verify that. So I think that's a little bit of, we were talking about that earlier.
If the strings, all the other strings don't come along with that, I'd be much more supportive.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe, yeah.
But if we have to open it up to public participation that way, that's a different animal.
All right, anyone else with thoughts around this before we move on? Seeing none. Next item is item 10.8, which is a board review and approval of a letter for staff in honor of Teacher Appreciation Week. Someone want to make that motion? Crystal, seconded by Bree.
Because I haven't seen.
I didn't see it in my packet
No,
either.
because we
Same
forgot
paper.
about it. We have it right here. I can read it and then pass it around to people to sign. Thank you, Anthony, for your language. In recognition of National Teacher Appreciation Week, MSAD52 Board of Directors takes the opportunity to honor the important work that you do each day in our schools. We are deeply grateful for your contributions. Your passion and dedication to your profession are at the core of everything the district does to meet the educational needs of our community's children. You help students excel in their areas of strength and overcome their challenges so that they have a strong academic foundation upon which to build their future. The Board of Directors values your expertise and commitment to continually honing your skills and creativity so that you deliver your best to our students so that they, in turn, are better equipped to reach their individual and unique potential. Thank you for your hard work. Sincerely, Board of Directors. So appreciate Anthony providing that language this year.
Anyone with any thoughts around this letter? Again, the motion on the floor is to review and approve. So if there's no more discussion around it, we can move into a vote. A yes vote would be to approve us all signing and sending this letter to our district teachers. Okay. All those in favor? That is unanimous.
Do you want me to pass this around now or do it in executive session?
Let's wait till the executive session. Yep.
I didn't get the motions either.
So this brings us on to item 10.9. I don't know, Teresa, if you are able to read back precisely what the motion that was made earlier.
I will do my best. Let's see if I can.
I scribbled it down here, but I don't think I have it perfect.
A motion was made by Anthony Shostak, seconded by Kyle Harrington, and voted 5 yes and 4 no to add an agenda item to tonight's agenda to direct the superintendent to make all staff, faculty, guidelines and handbooks available on the district website.
Okay. So that was added. Now we'll need I guess we'll need someone to actually make the motion. Anthony, seconded. Peter, and we're into discussion. I just want to start this one by saying, when Carrie got back from vacation, it was the first time we talked about the list of requests from Anthony. That was forwarded around to all of you earlier. You saw that there were several things that we added to tonight's meeting already regarding the superintendent's report that we had some conversation around. There was a number of items on there, and I certainly, my response to Anthony was not that we weren't going to talk about any of those things. It was simply that we're ready to talk about these ones tonight, and the other ones should really be deferred to future meetings, because there's, again, the conversation that I had with Carrie, and I almost don't want to call her on the floor for it, because I know that she's not necessarily ready to talk about these things, but I know that she's working on a handbook with these guidance materials. It's something that she's been working on since she arrived. I very much think that we need to try to continue to stick to the board norms we set for ourselves earlier this year. I think it was a very good point that Bree made earlier, to not have surprises. Again, this is not something that was on the agenda. I think this would be a much better discussion if we planned to have this discussion. I think not having it be a surprise and for us to be prepared, it would also lead to a much better and more efficient use of our time, okay? So I'm going to propose, I'm going to put a motion out right now that we table this until the superintendent is prepared to speak to it, and we have all had a chance to think about it, and we can come back and have a better conversation at a future meeting. Will anyone second that motion? Bree. So discussion around tabling this to the future. Bree.
Likewise, I don't necessarily disagree with Anthony's suggestion to have these things made public. However, I cannot have a conversation about that without having it in front of me to look at the language, to look at what exactly are we going to be putting out onto a public website. Like, we are prepared to discuss this tonight, so I would feel much more comfortable using our time efficiently and productively if we had time and we had the materials in front of us to be able to be efficient and effective with our time.
Go ahead, Pete.
I'm very much torn on this one. I did vote to bring it forward. Primarily, part of it, the fact of the matter is I'm embarrassed. I've been on the school board for many, 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 many years, a couple different sessions, and I was under mostly the understanding that we were run by policies. I was unaware, and it's my fault, that we had a variety of things that were dictated by, in this fashion, and that bothered me when I started finding out about it. And it bothered me that we as a board were not necessarily informed about it. So that in and of its own right has made me very upset about the fact that the guidelines are there. And if it's an important enough issue to have a guideline, and I'm not talking about any particular guideline. I don't care which one you want to pick and focus on. AI, whatever, I don't care. But if it's important enough to have a guideline, why don't we have a policy? So that particular aspect has bothered me since it's come to my real attention over the past 6 months. To me, it's not necessarily a new issue. This has been beating around, floating around the ether here for probably 5 or 6 months now, starting with a variety of different issues. I am split though, because I do agree, even though I look at some of the stuff and we make adjustments to the agenda quite often, and some were made today, I believe. As additions to the agenda were made today. So that kind of shoots my initial concern that we're not allowed to have surprises, down. Because we have things added to if administration finds something that needs to be added to the agenda, it gets added to the agenda that day. So in that case, my initial thought was, well, okay, maybe we shouldn't be having things added to the agenda because, as you said, we need time. But then it's just like, well, it's done by administration, so why can't the board do it? So I'm kind of torn on that one, because I do agree that it should be out there for the public to know we're going to talk about it. If they want to come and speak about it and so forth, they should. So like I said, I realize I'm all over the place here, so that's my concern. I don't see where there's an issue and what we need to discuss so much about in the fact that we want to put this information out there. If it's information that we're running our school by, we're not talking about information about individual kids or individual teachers. We're talking about the guidelines that is available for our staff to use, regardless what that guideline is. That information should be available and free access. And to me, that's really a no-brainer. So that's why I don't necessarily have an issue with it.
Just before, I just, and maybe Carrie might want to speak to this too, but again, part of what I was saying was that you're talking about it as if there's already this whole collection of guidelines that are already, that all the staff have and handy and ready to go, and that's not the case.
Well, I think it just depends on the situation. If you were a kid and a parent that these guidelines applied to, you would have them. You would have them because the guidelines are very clear. And again, I don't have them in front of me tonight, so I can't even really participate in this conversation very well. I have to get my computer out and look at them because I don't have them in front of me because I wasn't prepared for it. But I think any guidelines that we use that involve plans for students, the families and the students have them, like the people that it's relevant for. So it's not a hidden document in that way. The people who it applies to would have that. So I just want to make sure that that's very clear.
And I also wanted to add that, I know you said administration adds things versus the board adds things. I mean, I'm the chair of the board, right? You guys elected me to do that. I coordinate with Carrie weekly, every couple days sometimes, when she's not, when it's not school break or what have you, to talk about what might need to come up. The only things that we ever add that are like surprises might be things that are incredibly timely, like bids we need to accept from a contractor or some kind of oil pricing that we're going to be changing around. This, we try very hard to put out an agenda well in advance and be planned and not to have surprises. We try very hard to do that, and it's not the administration doing it. It is both me as the chair of the board and Carrie that talk about these things very regularly, right? And There's a lot of thought that gets put into what comes onto the agenda, when it comes onto the agenda. We want our administration to be able to answer our questions. We just had this whole conversation on the budget. We had questions about the budget. We want people to be there to answer our questions. We want to let Carrie have the time. She's very busy. She's got a lot going on. She can't be prepared to talk about every single issue at every time at a whim. So I strongly suggest that we just table this to a meeting, maybe next meeting, maybe the meeting after that. That's going to come down, if you remember, my response to Anthony on this was, that's going to be up to Peter and Carrie when they plan the next meeting agenda, whether it's next meeting or the meeting after, but I don't think it should be this meeting, okay? Very deliberate decision. So I'm just asking, again, we're in the conversation right now about tabling this to the future. I strongly urge that we do. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just gonna say, leaning towards tabling it as long as we have a date, either, that before the end of the year, it's gonna be on the agenda items. I do think that I wanna see a list of what the guidelines are that are in the district. I think there are some that the board's probably gonna direct the district to move to policy committee, because they should be policy. I think there's been talk of that already, since we've seen some floating around in email. So I kinda don't feel as though I have enough I wanna be able to have a conversation about it, but I do wanna make sure it gets on the agenda and not just table it and the next thing you know, we're.
Right. Well, and I guess that's kind of thing. Tabling it does mean that it kind of goes down unless someone puts them back. And do you know who could do that? It could be Peter and Carrie when they prepare the agenda for next meeting, right? If we say we postpone to the next meeting, it has to come back, right? So I'm purposefully suggest we table to give that flexibility to Carrie and Peter as they craft the next meeting agenda. We could change this to be a postponement till this particular date and force it to happen then, if that's what people would rather do. But I'm purposely suggesting we table and give Peter and Carrie the deference when they're preparing the next meeting agendas to bring it forward when they're ready. Alex?
I would just echo everything that Peter said. He spoke, I wouldn't have said much different. I didn't know things like this were in, play. I agree with Ashley also that I would like to see a date of some sort, just to ensure that it's on, a set timeline or something, or, it doesn't have to be the next meeting, but I don't think it's necessarily a new topic. I didn't know there was a handbook being worked on.
There's a student parent handbook,
Yep.
that one's publicly available.
Right.
We don't have a district staff handbook.
Okay, yeah, and I just, like I said, it's not new to the point where it's total surprise. But I voted to bring it forward to force the issue a little bit, that it gets tough.
Yeah. Again, not trying to say we shouldn't talk about it. I'm not trying to say that your points aren't valid. I'm just suggesting tonight's not the night. Go ahead.
I'll just reiterate that I seconded the tabling, and I agree, I trust Peter, as we kind of have to, because he's the vice chair and he's taking over, so I'd like to give that authority over to Peter. He's heard what's being said right now. I don't think that he's gonna look at this and say, let's wait till next year and never talk about it again. Like, I don't think that's gonna happen. I trust Peter to take what we're saying tonight and be able to make that executive decision on our behalf in his conversations with Carrie.
Wow.
Peter, no pressure.
I don't trust myself.
He says 3 words the whole meeting.
I know.
Peter, no pressure. The whole meeting, Kyle.
I like the idea of having the conversation about it. That's why I seconded to at least get it on the table to talk about it. I am for the fact of tabling it. And like Bree says, give it to Peter to put that weight on, make a decision.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
I'll just point out, Joe, that you spoke 5 times before I had a chance to speak. So, it's interesting to me that the board norms like no surprises get invoked at times like this. The board norms include other norms like listening respectively, which one would think includes not interrupting somebody while they're speaking, and giving everyone the opportunity to participate, which might mean not speaking 5 times before somebody else has a chance to speak. This motion is not to discuss or debate a particular guideline. That needs to be done, and I would love to see a date for that to be on a forthcoming agenda. This motion is to make such documents immediately transparent to the public and to ourselves. None of us know what other documents out there might exist that also function like policy, but that aren't, that have never been reviewed by the board. I think our public deserves this kind of transparency. That is all that this motion is asking for. And to table it because we don't have enough information. We don't have enough information to make something that we know exists publicly available through the website. That is astounding to me. By all means, let's have a discussion that we can be super prepared for. We don't need weeks to ponder whether or not something that removes parents' rights should be made public for those parents to be able to see exactly what is going on here. So I'm going to urge you all to vote down the amendment and to just simply vote up the original motion, and then we can move on.
Really tempted to speak sixth time here, but I think I'm just going to put it to a vote. Again, the discussion right now is to table to a future meeting. We'll largely leave it in Peter and Carrie's discretion as they prepare future meeting agendas. All those in favor of tabling the motion? All those opposed? The motion is tabled. We will move on to a motion to request an executive session to discuss the acquisition of property pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056C. Would anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Crystal, second. Kyle?
We'll go to the library.
All those in favor? Is that unanimous? All those opposed? Is anyone abstaining? Okay, so one in opposition. We are in executive
Going to
session.
executive, yeah.
Yeah.